It's only been a few days since the US hit Chinese-built cargo ships with those massive new port fees, up to $1.5 million per vessel. And now, the shipping industry is scrambling to adapt. Since the new US surcharge took effect, ship owners across Europe, Asia, and the Americas have begun adjusting how they write and renegotiate their contracts, especially when Chinese-built ships are involved. One of the biggest shifts we're seeing is the addition of U.S. port entry clauses in time charters and voyage charters. These clauses specify who is responsible for paying the new fees if a vessel built in China calls at a U.S. port. In many cases, owners are now insisting that charterers bear the cost, especially when the vessel was not originally intended to call at the U.S. Others are going further. They're inserting port exclusion clauses, stating explicitly that certain vessels will not be sent to the U.S. at all, just to avoid triggering the fee. This has started to influence how some global carriers route their ships, with U.S.-bound cargo being reassigned to non-Chinese-built vessels. Some operators are even swapping vessels mid-route. Let's say a Chinese-built ship carries cargo from Asia to Panama. Before it hits a U.S. port, the cargo is transferred to a different ship that won't be taxed. It's not efficient, but for high-value shipments it's cheaper than paying the port fee. And finally, we're hearing reports of contract renegotiations happening in bulk, especially for long-term time charters where the original terms never anticipated such a policy shift. Legal teams are reviewing every line because the stakes are just that high. These aren't just minor tweaks. They're structural adjustments that reflect a new level of uncertainty in the global shipping market. The industry isn't just sitting still. Ship owners, brokers, and charterers are moving fast to find temporary solutions. Some are rerouting shipments to avoid U.S. ports altogether, especially when the cargo doesn't absolutely need to enter the U.S. For example, West Coast-bound goods might now be offloaded in Mexico or Canada, then trucked or railed across the border. It adds complexity, but it dodges the port fee. Others are using vessel substitutions, assigning U.S.-bound cargo to older ships or non-Chinese-built tonnage whenever possible. One fleet manager told TradeWaves that his company is juggling ships like chess pieces to avoid having high-fee vessels dock in Los Angeles or Houston. In terms of chartering strategy, we're seeing a shift towards shorter-term contracts with more flexibility built in. This gives both parties room to respond as the policy landscape continues to evolve. Some brokers have started offering contract templates with plug-in clauses to handle port surcharges, making it easier to quickly onboard new clients under the new conditions. There's also growing talk of cost-sharing agreements, where the charterer and the ship owner split the new port tax to keep deals moving. These are rare, but they're gaining traction in high-volume trades like trans-Pacific container routes. As expected, legal departments are under pressure. Maritime lawyers have reported a surge in demand for contract audits, as clients want to know if they're exposed to new liabilities under existing agreements. Shipping associations in Europe and Asia are calling for clarity, and in some cases, challenging the legality of the U.S. surcharge through diplomatic and legal channels. But for now, most players are focused on adaptation, not litigation. What this means for U.S. importers and exporters. While the shipping contracts are getting restructured overseas, the impact is already being felt here at home. U.S. importers and exporters are facing higher freight costs, fewer vessel options, and new delivery delays, especially if they rely on Chinese-built ships for trans-Pacific trade. For importers, the biggest concern right now is supply chain reliability. If a vessel swap or reroute occurs last minute to avoid the port tax, it can delay container unloading by days or even weeks. That creates a ripple effect, especially for companies running lean inventories or tight retail schedules. Exporters are in a similar bind. Some agricultural exporters in the Midwest and Gulf region have reported that ships originally scheduled to pick up cargo are being reassigned, leaving goods stuck at terminals until alternative vessels are available. And if a Chinese-built ship is the only one available, the exporter may have to absorb the $1.5 million fee or pass on the opportunity altogether. Then there's the pricing issue. With higher operating costs, shipping companies are adjusting their rate sheets. Several freight forwarders have confirmed that new surcharges are being added to shipping quotes, sometimes labeled as a vessel origin adjustment or simply as a port entry fee. For U.S. businesses, that means paying more, even when the goods themselves aren't directly tied to China. And let's not forget small and mid-sized businesses who often lack the bargaining power to negotiate favorable shipping terms. These companies are the most vulnerable right now, especially those that rely on affordable shipping lanes to remain competitive. It's becoming clear that the ripple effects of this policy go beyond ship owners. U.S. companies and their customers are already feeling the pain. The immediate disruptions are serious, but the long-term consequences of this U.S. policy could be even more transformative. First, there's growing consensus in the shipping world that this move will accelerate the diversification of shipbuilding sources. Ship owners who previously relied on China for affordable and high-quality construction are now exploring Korea, Japan, and even emerging yards in Turkey and Vietnam, despite the higher upfront costs. But there's a catch. As we mentioned in a recent video, Japan and Korea are already struggling to meet global demand, and alternative builders aren't yet equipped to fill the gap. That means we could see longer lead times for new ship deliveries and even price inflation across the entire shipbuilding market. Second, the structure of charter agreements may permanently change. Legal experts say that U.S.-specific clauses are likely to become standard in new contracts, similar to how force majeure clauses evolved after the pandemic. From now on, any ship owner doing business that touches U.S. waters will need a legal strategy for managing these kinds of trade barriers. Third, there's potential for regional fragmentation in global shipping. If U.S. policy continues to penalize Chinese-built ships, we may see more ship owners designate fleets for non-U.S. service, vessels that operate only in Asia or Europe to avoid legal and financial headaches. That could split the shipping market into U.S.-compatible and non-U.S.-compatible fleets, increasing operational complexity for global logistics providers. And lastly, geopolitical tensions are likely to intensify. China has already called the U.S. surcharge discriminatory, and some analysts fear tit-for-tat retaliation, possibly through Chinese port restrictions, targeted inspections, or new levies on U.S.-owned vessels operating in the Asia-Pacific. So while this may have started as a simple port fee, it's quickly turning into a structural realignment of global shipping practices, one that could reshape the entire industry in the years ahead. So what happens next? All eyes are now on how the U.S. government responds to the growing pushback from the shipping and trade community. Will there be clarifications or carve-outs? Will CBP issue exemptions for certain vessels or industries? As of now, there's no formal guidance, and the silence is fueling even more uncertainty. Meanwhile, ship owners are moving quickly to future-proof their operations, and charterers are reviewing every clause, trying to avoid getting caught with an unexpected million-dollar bill. It's a tense moment, and no one wants to be the first case study of what happens when a contract isn't ready for these fees. For now, this story is still developing, and we'll be following every twist. If the policy evolves or if retaliatory measures ramp up, we'll break it down for you here with facts, context, and insight you can trust. If you found this update helpful, hit that like button, subscribe for daily trade and tariff news, and let us know in the comments. How do you think this will all play out? Are these fees going to become the new normal? Or will the industry push back hard enough to trigger change? And as always, sources are listed in the description if you'd like to explore further. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.